Good morning. Okay, just keep trying. I'm trying putting a message on the screen here to ask people to put their name and call in the chat. Let me know if that's a good idea or not.
Brian, I think that's a great idea. Also, probably wouldn't hurt to send a reminder email out to people right now that the meeting starts at 11:30. Just so it's top of their mailbox. I always have to go hunt through and try and find it in my inbox.
Okay, I sent one, a week ago and yesterday.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, whoops, hold on a minute there. There we go. Hey, Brian, what I have always done, I do a lot of these meetings for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I just copy the link and put it in my calendar. So if I have the meeting set on my calendar on my computer, in the notes section, you could just paste a link. I don't know if that's a suggestion you can put out. I guess the other thing some people do, I don't do this, but some people actually send it as a calendar note and then it automatically puts it on their calendar. That's probably overkill for what we do,
Mm-hmm.
but it does work to just copy the link and put it in the notes under your calendar under the time of the meeting. Then you don't have to go hunting for it.
Right. It is on the, if you look on the calendar, there is a link.
Right, right. Yeah, on the regular website calendar, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I started added that. Only so much we can do.
Absolutely.
Oh, you should be happy, Brian. I voted for you.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't like your opposition.
So I was just chatting here. I was in Kona for 10 days or with our daughter, and I actually brought my handheld and I went and added about half a dozen um, um, information on repeaters in that area. And I had it on scanning for quite a bit, and I made calls. I never heard anyone in the time I was there. Could be because I don't have the was it KX 6 call sign, so maybe they don't talk to people who aren't local. But I looked at their website. The club that does, they have a club there. They have a website, and it had a calendar. And I said, "Oh, let's take a look." And they have a lunch gathering on Friday. So I looked at that, and then I looked at the calendar, and it was last updated in 2023.
Well, our repeaters don't get a heck of a lot of use.
Mm-hmm.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
Great. I had to
you
change
got it.
laptops.
Great. But people say, "Are we doing enough here at SJCARS on our getting information out and our calendar?" And as I said, the club there hadn't updated their calendar since 2023.
Well, we were working on that.
I agree that we don't get a lot of activity on our repeaters, but if you put out a call, I almost always hear somebody respond.
Yeah, it's usually Ed.
Right? Or Wayne.
What amazes me, I belong to a club over in Salt Spring Island. Long story, but now those people have been over there. I've done some of their fox hunts. Really good bunch of folks. Those repeaters over there get used all the time. Every morning, they're I don't know what it is about what goes on over there, but they it's kind of refreshing. They do use their repeaters a lot.
And I've listened on other Canadian repeaters, and they are pretty busy in the morning because aren't there are a bunch of them that are tied together, and so you get people all along that area, not just Salt Spring.
Yeah, it's called the Island Trunk Network or Island Trunk System, and it goes
Right.
from Salt Spring all the way to Port McNeil, Port McHenry, I guess it is. And it's great for the boaters. They have the British Columbia Boaters Net in the summer, and they're all linked. So that has been a bit of a lifesaver for a lot of people. I remember I was a couple of years ago. Can't remember where I was, but some guy was broken down in Gabriola, and the guy was on the net, and he said, "Here's my cell phone. Call me after the net. I'm a mechanic. I'm on Gabriola. I'll fix your boat." Pretty handy.
Nice.
Like the old days, right before cell phones. I forgot my cell phone the other day, and it was an unbelievable bipolar experience. I was relieved and panicked simultaneously. I went, "Oh man, this is great," and then I went, "Oh no, I'm out of touch." It's really been an interesting cultural phenomenon to be connected 24/7 all the time.
Right.
Hello?
Hello there.
Oh, Paul, I had a quick question. What level classes are you doing in LICW these days?
I'm doing intermediate 3 right now.
Uh, I'm doing intermediate 1 and 2, and 2 is way over my head, but I figure I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll work my way into it. It's fun.
Yeah, I think the whole secret is keep trying to keep it fun, and that's hard for me to do, but because I want to get there yesterday, but Intermediate 3, we're working around 20. It's all head copy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was good for Bill last week. Intermediate 2, I didn't use a pencil once. Didn't learn anything, but I didn't use a pencil. It was fun.
Good morning, Tom.
Morning.
Hey,
Good morning, Tom. Looking forward to your presentation today.
let's see if you can see this.
Thank you.
Yes, a couple of the club members and I installed the fire department radio on station 27 out
Oh,
there
yeah.
and saw your equipment up on the cupola, which is where I really wanted to mount our stuff. But I decided that rather than jam you or be jammed by you, we put it up on the front of the building.
Well, if there ever is an emergency, we do have a generator for that location, so.
Excellent, because that makes it one of the few outlying stations with emergency power.
Hey, if anybody's interested, I don't know if you can see this or not. Can you see that little? Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Can you see that? That little thing I'm holding there is the entire antenna. Okay,
Lift a little bit higher, please, Paul.
there we go. How about that?
Good.
Yeah. So that's the entire antenna right there. It's a little BNC connector. The shrink wrap is around the matching unit, and it's about, I don't know, 33, 34, 36 feet of wire. I can't remember what I cut it at. And no coax, no coax. And yesterday I tested it, and it was 1.15 at up for 20, cut for 20 meters only. It was 1.15 at 14.025, and it was like less than 1.3 through the whole 20-meter band. So I have no idea how this thing works. It was a bear to build because the little capacitor is like a grain of sand, because the entire matching unit fits on the size of a little BNC connector. So it was a clever little thing designed by a guy, K6ARK. He sells them as a kit. They're pretty cheap, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting for parks on the air, that kind of thing, not have to carry coax. And I was skeptical, but it gets pretty good reports and it's working pretty well. So if you want a project that'll test the steadiness of your hands and your eyesight, this is one of them. I failed 3 times before I got one to work.
Right. Yeah, I've done that. Hey, Tom, while you're here, would you go ahead and try to put up this on the screen?
Using my wife's computer, and my eyesight's not as good on hers.
Well, it's a good time to try it now then.
Hey, Brian, I'm seeing the whiteboard. Is everybody else seeing that? Am I supposed to be seeing that?
Yeah, I put that on for the message there. I'll take it off in a moment.
Okay,
I was just trying something new.
no problem. Just wanted to make sure I didn't have another problem.
No.
I have 2 identical laptops, and I've just recently fired up the one I hadn't yet fired up yet, and Zoom works. Everything works except Zoom doesn't get my microphone audio, so I had to run out in the lab and get the other laptop.
So Ed, how does that little antenna work with no coax?
Beats me. It took me a while to get your picture to appear, so I have no idea. That's the whole antenna, that tiny little thing.
A tiny little thing's a whole antenna. Well, the wire, you've got the wire and that's it, and the little matching unit.
Oh, okay. And so yeah, no big deal. It has coax. It's extremely short that way.
How long a wire is that?
I cut it for 20 meters, the standard length. I think it was probably 33, 34, something like that.
Yeah, it's just a little matching network to match something that's a couple thousand ohms down to 50.
Paul, why don't you go ahead and post it?
I'll do that. I will do that. It's kind of an interesting thing it's great for the soda guys because you don't have to carry very much. You know, you take,
Yeah, that's really nice.
yeah,
Why don't you put it on the club talk so most people, almost everyone will see it?
I'll do that. I will do that.
If you put it in the tech one, nobody wants to look in that one.
Okay. Well, I'm not very techy. I only started soldering a few years ago, and this one was kind of interesting. The first one I built, I followed his video he put on YouTube, and the thing was a disaster. And I sent him an email, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's out of date. I changed some parts." So then he said, "Go look on my website. I have the build instructions on the website." So I built that one, and I was so excited. I took it in the backyard here, and I have a little 20-foot, carbon fiber mast. I threw it up, and I went, "Oh, this thing works." I was so excited. I tripped over the wire, and I dropped, and I broke it. And then I said, "I'm going to try to rebuild it." And I went, "I can't rebuild this. The little capacitor thing is literally like a grain of sand." So I bought another one, and then I said, "This time I'm buying two just in case." So I finally got it built. But a friend of mine, he belongs to our club, N7JTT. John does a lot of soda stuff, and John has had great luck with that antenna. Just taking that and a little KH1, and not using the built-in antenna on the Elecref KH1. Just there's a BNC on it, and throw it up in a tree, and it's been done really well with it. So I figured I'll give it a shot. But great for rainy winters, right? When you build stuff.
Paul,
Any luck,
what,
Tom?
No, I'm not getting it to pull up. I got a PDF file.
Okay.
Not getting
Oh,
it.
good. A good time to play with that.
Yeah.
hey, Paul, what kind of radio do you hook that up to? And are you using the BNC connector or an SMA or?
I'm using the BNC. So KX2 is
Oh, yeah.
my go-to if I'm like doing a Parks on the Air kind of thing. But also the little Elecref KH1. I'm in love with that little radio. It's an interesting little thing. Although more I use it, I don't really need it. The KX2 does everything. And I also have a Yaesu 818, the old 817, 818 little 5 watt. Also all QRP stuff. I think he has a version of it that'll do 100 watts. This is just the QRP version of it. And so KX2 mostly. It's amazing radio, that little KX, that tuner in that thing. Just.
Okay, so let me try something different here.
Yeah, it looks great. I just looked at the K6ARK website, and it looks like a very neat little compact design.
Yeah, he's quite a guy. This guy, Adam, is very, 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 very smart guy, and he does a lot of stuff. Of course, it's all hobby stuff, but he's got quite a few things out there.
Not importing it, but I could probably just get screen share and pull it up on my computer.
Okay. Yeah, that should. I just check. You have co-host capability.
Okay. Gotcha.
I just put a link in the chat to the build instructions on that little antenna just for the heck of it. And then Brian, I'll put something out on the groups.io later on.
Great. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Other people will do it. They'll probably ask for you to help them solder them.
Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished, right?
Right.
Actually, I
Yeah, I
haven't,
did.
where is, this is different software than I use on my computer. Where's the screen share on the regular software?
So on Zoom,
Yeah,
yeah, there should be a box that says share.
got that.
You should be able to just click that.
Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. I got it. I don't need that. Let me get rid of that.
Looks like it's working. Hopefully,
Yeah. So
we
let's
got
try
it.
this. We just pull it, make sure I can pull up that file. Where's it? It's right. Oh, here we go.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask you to take it off for now. So because
Yeah.
we have some other things to put on the screen,
You
but
bet.
just want to be sure it's working. But we can only do one at a time.
Going back to. Still share. Is it still sharing?
Yes.
Ah,
So if you just go back to the sharing button,
oh, I
just
got it. Yeah, I got it.
click it again and it'll go
Got
away.
it. There you go.
All right, we're good. So you're gonna, I should set up Ed here. So I see names on here. If you have a call sign, please go ahead and put that in your name. It helps us for tracking this.
All right, Mr. Vice President, are we ready to get started?
Absolutely. It's yours.
All right. Well, welcome to Tom and his colleague. And I guess the first thing is, does anybody have any corrections or updates to the March meeting minutes? Nothing heard, so we'll adopt them as they are. Moving on to reports. President's report is mercifully short, nothing to report. Brian, anything from you?
Nothing as the vice president.
Okay. And let me take a look here. I think we have the treasurer's report here.
Okay,
Unless the
Ed,
treasurer wants to read it.
yeah, Ed, you can go ahead and put it on the screen.
Yeah, do you want me to put it on a screen or are you gonna put it on a screen?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. And
Okay,
now
we
put the treasurer on the screen.
Hello. Yes, you can see we had one membership paid through PayPal, and we have our two expenses of the web service for D-Star and an annual report filing fee. and that gives us $9,685.52 in the bank. Any questions? Okay.
All right. On to the committee reports. And Ed, while you're there, what's the situation with membership?
Oh,
We added one member, so we're at 59.
That's strange, because last month the report was 65 with 5 new.
I think it was 58.
We had 65 and I think it was 63 before that. So it's been hard to keep up with the numbers, but I saw you sent out a list yesterday. This is Scott. So the paid membership now is, you can confirm, 59 current.
Oh, 69.
Ed, you're muted.
69, thank you. Is 69 what it says on the report?
Yes.
Okay, then that's the number, 69. It was 68.
Okay. It's still a little bit hard to follow, because last month it was 65 with 1 new addition. No, 65 with 5 new additions. And now we're at 69 with 1 new addition.
I
How
think
does that work?
that doesn't sound right. We did an interim one. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Why don't we just look at
Well,
it next, why don't we look at it next month and, or
Yeah.
the message,
yeah.
not take the time here.
All right. The VE team.
So we have ham exam on Friday Harbor, May 3rd, 9 a.m. It's on our calendar. Paul's going to be taking care of that. And so far, I think we have one person who's interested. Nothing on Lopez. I know we don't do it every month.
Okay. Thank you. Repeaters.
Nothing to report.
Okay, is Wayne here?
yeah, everything's good on Constitution.
All right.
I do have one thing to report related to the repeater. Echolink is down again, and we don't know why. Basil has looked at it. He can ping the Raspberry Pi. I can ping it, but it won't connect to the Echolink servers. Caleb is looking at it. After that, we may have to find ourselves an Echolink goober. We had one. I think his name is Ken Coster, and we may have to go back to Ken and say, why can't we talk to Echolink?
All right. And
Actually, Basil just came in. Hey, Baz, questions about Echolink?
My screen says you need to admit him.
I did. Let me see if it's on the list. Yeah, Basil's in. Hey, Basil, question about Echolink.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
For some reason, there we go. Hi.
Question, Echolink.
Yep. So, Caleb's involved. I think it's a network problem, but I don't know enough to know whether it's something going on with Equilink servers or with our 44net. So I'm going to try and do some debugging today, and Caleb will get involved when he's not so busy saving lives.
Right. Might be good. You want to post something on groups.io just to tell people that it's down?
Ah, okay,
Put it on Club Talk.
sure.
Thank you. Okay, Larry, back to you.
All right, final committee report, MCOM.
We're making a little progress at the Fairground EOC. I believe they may start digging ditches for the underground conduit sometime in the next few weeks. So that's good. And I've finally managed to figure out how to get into the building. So they have a very clever system where you get a key out of a lockbox, stick it in the door and in the lock and turn it, which lights an LED, and then you operate the doorknob. Unfortunately, the doorknob operates in a direction such that you can't fully move it without banging your hand on the key. If you let go of the key, the light goes out. And so I've now know the contortions required to get in without smashing my thumb.
All right. Do we have any old business? I'm not aware of any, but all right, hearing nothing, I assume that we have none. Do we have any new business? All right, similarly, hearing nothing, I assume we have no new business, so we can get on to the presentation part.
Okay, just before we do that, if you haven't already, please put your name and call sign on the chat. And with that, Tom, why don't you go ahead and put it on the screen
Okay.
and tell folks who you are.
This up. Let me pull the. Pull up this PDF if I can get it. There we go. Okay. Didn't it pull up or is it? Hey, can you see that?
It's there, Tom, but it's not maximized. You can just maximize the window on it.
Okay, hold on here.
Stretch it out of it.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, can you see that now?
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Tom Tillman. I'm one of the founders and board members of the Adobe Internet Users Association. And as some of you know, my other hat is I took over for Erling Manley back in 2017 up at the Mount Constitution radio tower site. So that's background is I used to own a Radio Shack store. I was a Directway installer, satellite installer, and I was a telecommunications contractor. But when in 2013, when we founded Adobe Internet Users Association, I was one of the dreaded DSL technicians for CenturyLink. So I guess that's how we'll kind of start this. So in 2013, I was working for CenturyLink, and Rock Island was talking about creating their own, and many of you probably remember this, their own ISP. And we were attending meetings, several of us from Dobe, including Tony Simpson and Chris Sutton and a few other people. And we saw the way it was kind of going, that there was a lot of pushback, especially from certain members of the community against Apalco becoming an ISP. So they, of course, went to their vote, and it failed, and they voted it down, and Apalco was not going to become an ISP. So Chris, Sutton, Tony, and myself sat around and said, well, what can we do? And as a phone, I suggested, well, we could do our own thing. And my head as a copper guy was to get some T1 lines out to Dobe, and then rent some dry lines to the houses and provide our own DSL, and and kind of go that way and route around using CenturyLink systems. And then Chris Sutton came up with the idea of, well, why don't we do a wireless system? Because that was what he was used to, because he was doing that already in East Sound around some of the businesses and stuff, just kind of on his own. So at that point, we said, okay, well, where do we go from here then if we're going to do this? And we decided to recruit a couple people, including Chris Brems, who's a marketing guy. He's got a background. He used to do marketing for Filson and drug companies and stuff like that. And Sean Alexander's, who's an attorney. And we got together with them and said, well, what do we do? So we created this entity, Dobe Internet Users Association, and we held a community meeting, and we didn't really kind of jump out and say what we were doing, but everybody was talking about what we could do, to improve it. Do we go to the CenturyLink and try to push them, everything else? And that's when Chris Sutton stood up and said, well, why don't we do our own thing? Why don't we create our own ISP? And this group of people have already been talking about it, so let's do it. So the community seemed supportive of it, and so we started crunching the numbers and looked at what that key number we would have to get to sign up at $100 a month at that time, and to be able to make it work. And we were looking at the total cost of doing the entire system at about $50,000, I think it was. And we needed to get a licensed link to StarTouch over in Bellingham, and that was about $11,000. So we said, okay, well, if we get 25 people, we can pay that back, but where do we get the money up front? And so we went to one of our local billionaires, and there was she's more than happy to, because she would have been, or she is helped by it, but she had too many restrictions for us on what we were going to do. And then we went to the local resort, and that was the similar thing. It just wasn't, they were willing to give us some money, but it wasn't quite working out. And that's when one of our local anonymous donors came forward and said, I'll give you a zero interest loan for $50,000. And but you need to become a 501c3 actually, we're not a 501c3. I'm blanking out on what it is, but we're actually a nonprofit co-op, which I think is it's a 501c something. I'm kind of forgetting on that. So so we got the $50,000 and we started proceeding. And the first thing we did is we really had to figure out what's going to work, because the first thing we did was we brought in a 5 meg backhaul from StarTouch that was what they call their business service. And we were testing that from Chris Sutton's house. And it's like, okay, we can make that work. So it's worth it's worth getting the investment, but where do we put the antenna? And that's when we went to talk to the Dobe Water Users Association, which is another co-op, just like we set up. And we said, we can make this work from your tower if we can use it, if we can cut down a bunch of trees. And fortunately, some of our board members overlapped, and so we were able to work a deal with them, and we removed the trees, which was paid for by actually selling the logs. And so that was completely covered. We didn't have to worry about that. And what you're seeing here is when Chris and I put the first antennas up there. and you can see the logs are still there. And we put we put the antenna up, and one antenna went to the 5 meg antenna was looking at Burlington Hill, and then we went to Chris's house, and we went to my house, and it was working. So we said, okay, let's pull the trigger on the license link. And so they came over, StarTouch came over and put that up. And what we're seeing here is the relay system that it's going from Burlington and then going down. You can see my farm there in the background, that field. And then there was another antenna off to the right that went to Chris's. And then from there, we started using my place and Chris's place as a relay. And then so we would hit everybody we could. We would go to Google Earth, and well, Chris mostly would be doing this part, and he would literally draw lines from his house to, Bob Jones's house, and say, okay, it looks like we can make this. So we go out there, sometimes we sent up a drone. This was before all the big rules. We'd send up a drone with actually literally a radio attached to it and a wire coming down, and to see if we can even just get a hit. So with it, put it up in a tree, boom, we got it. And so we just started adding, and we eventually got almost all the people that signed up, except for, unfortunately, one of our board members, Tony Simpson. We couldn't get to his house. There was just too many relays, and the only place we could get to his place, and this is one of our problems we came up with, is we needed to use a piece of property that those people didn't want internet service, and they didn't want a relay. So we ended up not being able to do some people that we thought we could. So that became a little bit of an issue. But as we started growing, I should have put a different graphic up here, but you could see how it just daisy chained out. From the center of that little graph there is the tower, the water tower, and you just went out from there. So we'd have all these relays and all the houses, and we built up the system. I think the first big after 25 is we hit about 50, and then we stopped adding people for a while. And that was kind of our catch-up time, where we stabilized the system, we looked at our finances, and we realized at that point we actually were charging too much, and we were ending up with more money than we needed. So we did invest in more redundancy, putting up redundant systems for everything. We ended up getting propane run generators for many of our locations. And we also started doing free months, where some months we would just not charge anything so that we could burn down some of that extra funding. And then we kind of settled on an area of, I think at that point we dropped it to about $40 a month. I think that's about $40 a month at that point. And then we said, okay, we'll start adding some people a few at a time. And it went up and up and up. And, I think it got to about 75 people. And then we were able to lower it to about $25 a month. And we were still doing occasional free months. About that time, we also built a building up next to the water tower to house our equipment, because instead of just having it kind of in little boxes on the fence there. So that was our first headquarters, I suppose. And as we grew, you could see that we had some issues with the one picture you see there is the sheep in my field, and that's our relay antenna in my field. The sheep in my field would go over and knock pieces off the mounting down at the bottom, and they knocked down the internet. And we had a situation where people would unplug our relays, so it would not only knock their house down, it would knock everybody on their side down. So we ended up having to figure out how to get around that. We had a situation where we're trying to figure out, one of our redundant issues we put up is once Rock Island became part of the situation, Palco, obviously many of you know, bought Rock Island. And then they started moving into places, and they didn't come out to Doe Bay until very recently, but they hit Blakely Island. And so we worked to deal with them to have a secondary backhaul aside from StarTouch, and we put antennas up over on Blakely up to the water tower, so we had dual redundant backhaul to the mainland as well. So, when Rock Island would go down, everything would switch over to StarTouch, and well, there was there was some manual stuff at first, but I'll let Mark talk about how that's dealt with. And then we had issues from there to Orcas with the tides. When the tides would come up, we'd get lower service, and tide would go back down, the service would go up. Winds were an issue because a lot of our equipment was in trees. And then we also had problems with easements. We didn't have any legal easements for any of these properties. So somewhat recently, Sean wrote up easements for everybody that we have relays on, so that we can not only have access to those relays 24/7, but we also are able to keep those relays in place after the property sold, which was one of our other big issues. And then today we've added a few board members, Brett Marl, who's currently in the UK, Wiley Simonian, who's our new IT guy, and then Mark Prosser, who doesn't actually and hasn't lived on Orcas, even though we'd love to have him here, but he's up in Canada. And I think from there, I'd like maybe to get Mark to talk about the actual infrastructure. He's as far as the software, he's far better than me, far smarter than me about that sort of thing. So I'm going to let him talk about that. So I'm going to pull off of this, and we'll do that. Okay with you, Mark?
That's completely fine. I noticed that you have the tariff there. It's temporarily paused, the tariff. So this is a tariff-free conversation. Yeah, I'm over in Toronto, which I like to say right now is about 55 milliseconds away from Tom, round trip time. I just tested it right before this call just to make sure. So it's a lot more kilometers than that, but in milliseconds, it's not so bad when you think about it, right? Whereas
Mark,
Tom's connection.
are you going to put anything on the screen?
I could if you'd like. I have some graphics. I just don't want to overcomplicate it or anything
Sure, I
like that.
can. It just takes a second here.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, Basil here. I was born in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've we have a very large nation up here, just like you do south of me, and so I haven't been to everything. I've been to the San Juan Islands twice, and I've never been to Vancouver nor Vancouver Island. But every time I go up Mount Baker or something like that, I always give it a little wave. Whereas the Constitution is the one on. Yeah, sorry.
I'm
Hey, Mark,
kind
you're
of
a co-host now.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
kind of
perfect.
interested in seeing how a guy in Toronto fits in with with his local ISP stuff. So
Yeah, let me just see if I can get the screen here. And then I'll do the screen. And can you see my screen now? Yeah, I think I see the little preview
Yes.
there. Yeah. So how it kind of started is I reached out to Chris with an idea. I saw a video on Ars Technica of an article describing what Doe Bay Internet Users Association was. I thought it was very fascinating. At the time, I reached out to Chris via email saying, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Here's a list of software that maybe would help you out. And if you ever need some advice at some time, I'd love to email back and forth." And Chris coincidentally had that same problem that Tom was leading into there, where they had the original connection via StarTouch, which is that licensed link over to the mainland. But they also had this air fiber link that they wanted to connect over to over to Blakely Island. And he was having this problem that when StarTouch went down, he had to log in whatever time of night it was and manually switch that over, reprogram the radios to prefer this side versus that side. And he was kind of scratching his head as to how he could do that. So he asked me, I'm looking for a redundancy solution for this radio setup. And so I drew this up for him at the time and I sent to him. He's like, no, not quite like that. And we kind of emailed back and forth. And eventually he said, why don't you just join us in our chat group and maybe we can work on this together. And I realized it was more of a programming problem that he had and not so much he wanted redundant radios and such. And so since I was very familiar with that, I programmed the thing where if the StarTouch radio had gone down, I would send basically IP probes over it and detect that we can't reach the internet, and then it would automatically switch over to the backup. Eventually, we found out that, well, because Blakely was fiber and the air fibers were a lot more capacity compared to StarTouch, we eventually switched that over completely to that. We also experimented a little bit with active and such, but it caused a little bit of weirdness for our members. And so we kind of just stuck with the primary being the fiber off of Blakely, and then the StarTouch radio, which we still have a little bit of issues with today, being the backup, just so that members can keep browsing. The interesting thing, that was around 2016, and now it's been about 9 years that I've been riding along as a remote, I guess, board member or so. Some of the problems that we have in Doe Bay is more about I work for a power grid utility here in the province of Ontario, and we also have microwave radios that for transmission and switching and such like that. The thing is that they're T1s and they're on very, very strong structures. In Doe Bay Internet, we have the opposite problem where we have radios that are 300 times or 1,000 times faster than the ones I usually deal with, but they're strapped to trees or houses or barns or tanks, and they have obstructions such as sheep, as Tom would say. So sometimes our radios go down, and when that does happen, we have to send a dedicated arborist or somebody to go up and fix it for us. These Chris did a drone video of these. It's up on our website, dbiua.org, if you want to take a look at the video of this radio being replaced and such like. It was really fascinating process for me, especially because I hadn't, at this time that this radio replacement occurred, I hadn't actually yet been to the island. So really, I was programming a lot of the systems, but I never actually saw it. Over time, we kind of found that the way that Chris built it at the beginning was a little complex, but it got the job done. So this is kind of similar to the map that, I'm sorry, this is the best one. This is the map that Tom was showing you here. And what Chris had done at the time is he programmed every single radio and every single relay to essentially act like a router to allow the members to route natively. But every time there was a problem in the system, Chris would have to go to every little hop and reprogram it. So what we did is we made it a little bit more auto magic by taking these hops and making them more like segments where the routers would handle the communication between the bridge and the member. And so in the end, it ended up looking a lot more like this, where the members were essentially little legs off of the relay sites and off of the routers, and the routers themselves would handle the redundancy in case a failure would happen. In this scenario, you can still see that there is not so much resiliency. If relay 1 goes down, not only do the members off of that go down, everyone downstream at relay 2 as well would go down. That's still something that, just based on how we thread the needle, how we have to go through certain trees, or based on lack of line of sight, it's just the only way we can do it. But sometimes we have an alternate path where this is the normal path that a member would maybe communicate to each other. But in the event that the bottom link there failed, I've programmed the radios in a way to detect that within about 30 seconds or so, and they will switch over to the alternate path, essentially, which is our least preferred path. And sometimes we don't prefer those paths because maybe the line of sight isn't as great. Maybe there's more interference. Maybe, like as Tom was saying, we have tides that come in and out in that region. So it's not that the path doesn't work. It's just maybe a degraded service for members that try and do video conferencing and such like that, stuff like that right now. So that's really the iterations we've done over the year. But the main thing that we do now is we just kind of maintain the network. So for example, I have a graph here that's from our monitoring system that shows the overall capacity or quality of the radio links we have, but also the distance. You can see on the left-hand side of this graph that almost everything is about within one kilometer or so. I'm sorry, I don't know how long actually a kilometer is in freedom units, but I don't know, a mile or so, right? But we also have ones that are 6 kilometers or 8 kilometers long. You can see on the right-hand side there. And those ones actually have a great signal because they're usually shooting directly towards Blakely as an alternate path to get out to our internet access. So it's a really good line of sight. We're aiming them up. Whereas some of the radios point towards members, also going through trees, kind of touching the edge of a barn, such like that. That's kind of where we're at with our network now. But mainly the problems we have in our network isn't so much about radios. It's more about power. It always comes down to power. We have battery acid backups at every single box, and a box typically would look something like this in our network, where we stuff it all into a weather sealed box. We have the battery within there. It delivers power via 24 or volts DC. And that's essentially what a relay looks like in reality for us. But sometimes the reason why we lose power is just because the member's site lost power and the battery slowly drains over time. And it might take us a while to go and find out, did water get into the GFCI plug or not, or something like that, right? But that's really it in terms of how the day-to-day goes. How do I stop sharing here? Oh, there we go.
Hey, Mark, are you
Yeah.
using Ubiquity equipment mostly?
Yeah, that is the case. I could give you a quick share on that as well. Let's go back to the and then get you back on that here. So, for example, this is what like a router would look like for us. And if I did the routes, you could see mostly what we have in here is the connections to every other radio in the network, but as well as I can do ping Tillman ERD.net. And then I could ping Tom's radio from that radio, essentially. But as well as the connection out to the internet right now is via Rock Island. But if you did this from the tank, or no, this one's from the tank, sorry. Oh yeah, that one's via StarTouch. But from Blakely, it's out via Rock Island, essentially. Directly. I'm personally connecting over a VPN over the internet, so it seems like I'm local, but I'm not really, obviously, physically local to the network, right? But yes, it's all Ubiquity equipment. I prefer more of like a command line experience because it's very similar to Cisco routers, which we originally started with at the tank, and that's why I was really familiar with at the time. But it's also very similar to Juniper routers and very commercial level stuff. It essentially has a lot of the features that I need to create that redundancy and that kind of auto magic switchover so that at 2 a.m. if something goes down, the radio itself is just transmitting the medium between the routers, and the routers themselves determine that I should fail over here or fail over here or fail over here kind of thing. And I think that was it for what I wanted to cover. For the radios themselves, we can dive into the radios and see what the noise level is, what the current signal is, what the spectrum interference is per like across the unlicensed spectrum that we have. Usually operate in the 5 gigahertz, the 2.4 gigahertz range, whatever these Ubiquity radios allow us to have for an unlicensed low power kind of signal.
I guess we could mention that just recently we went back to the membership because now we do have Rock Island out here. And for many years, there was question whether they're ever going to trench out here. So they just had actually a license link, or no, I can't remember if they were using a license link or what to a power pole down at Doe Bay. But once they came out here, and Chris Sutton's now moving to the East Coast. So we went back to the membership and asked, okay, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to keep working at the pace we're doing? Do you want to keep going? Or should we disband Obey, take the money, spread it back out across the membership, and you guys just go find, you can go with Rock Island or Orcus Online, who's out here now, or whatever new product you want to do. And the membership, I don't remember what the final vote was, but the membership was pretty overwhelmingly towards let's keep going. So I don't know if you remember. Do you remember, Mark, what the numbers were? It was definitely very much so. Keep
Yeah,
going.
I mean, it was pretty overwhelming that members
Yeah.
want to keep going. I think it's just because, for the most part, you get a very neighborly touch from the Dobe Internet Users Association. The users and members really feel that they're part of this and they have a say. And there's a lot of house calls involved, whereas maybe with CenturyLink, not so much. Let alone the speed and such. I'm sure Tom was the best tech they ever had, but I don't know about the rest. But I think that there was quite a delta when members went to Dobe, and they for not only could emails work and a lot of their video conferencing work, but as well as they could work with the network in terms of getting an experience that works for them. One of the feedback we got is that a lot of our radios and our routers were all white. They were kind of an eyesore, so we went and painted a lot of them brown to match the trees, right? This is the kind of feedback that we get from members and we're willing to do, and I think that's why a lot of members want to keep with us.
And we're an all volunteer group. Nobody gets paid.
Just
So
doing it for fun, huh?
it's
Mm.
I think there's a tradition in Doe Bay of coming out for your neighbors, and our water district is like that, and although they do have some paid employees, but I can give you an personal example. We've had the farm out here since 71, but I don't know, about 15, 20, I can't remember now, 20 years ago, one of our barns burned down, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the kind of money to rebuild that, but I get this call from one of my neighbors that says, we're getting a group together, we'll be over. And the local lumber mill milled all the wood. All the guys that were contractors or anybody could swim a hammer showed up, and they rebuilt the entire barn in a weekend for me, and it didn't cost me a penny. So that's just kind of the way Doe Bay works, and it's a good, it's a reason why a lot of people don't like to move out of Doe Bay. So
Great
What-
story.
What sort of speeds do your end users see?
Mark,
Yeah, it really depends on how close they are to the front of the line or the back of the line. Some of our members are really in between trees, and we're using 900 megahertz radios. They're typically seen in cordless phones and such, right? So they could see anywhere between at most 50 megabits per second on a really good day. But some members will get about 800 gigabits per second, like close to what people would expect for fiber, right? If you're at the front of the line, Chris Brems, I like to call him the boss, the CEO, the executive kind of thing. And he's directly connected to Blakely for quite a while. So he gets almost uninterrupted speed directly to our fiber connection over there. So it really depends on the member. It's just, I think a lot of members are happy to have that compared to their DSL speeds that they had via CenturyLink, because that DSL was also really oversaturated, I guess, right? Oversubscribed, because you could send an email. Chris Brems would say that I would send an email, he'd go make a coffee, and then say, "Oh, I guess it's time for another coffee. It still hasn't sent," kind of thing. Whereas now people are, connecting with their grandkids across the country, across the planet, and such. So it really depends on the member. But I would say that most of the people who came on early are very much front of the line and have a pretty good experience.
we definitely took the low hanging fruit to begin with. Most of the early members were definitely people we could get to very easily without a lot of stress. So
Hey, Mark, do you have a program running that checks the reliability of your network like continuously?
Well, yeah, I mean, so we have a full network monitoring system that's baked in with Ubiquiti. It used to be called UNMS, now called UISP, I think it's called. It has like, the customer relationship management and everything built in, but it shows us where like the link potentials could be bad in terms of like high latency, in terms of low link potential and such. But we also have a lot of our own homegrown software. Some of these things will allow us to basically ping all of the members throughout the day. And so when they go down, it tells us in our chat group that this member is down. And we can usually tell that saying, oh, if Tillman site is down, for example, we know everybody of the neighbors who are downstream of that. So we immediately go to Tom's farm and say, what's the sheep up to today? But as for some of our members, sometimes it's a little bit more of a nuanced issue. Like, is it beyond the radio, like the customer's house or the member's house rather? Or is it upstream of that? And if that's the case, what is it? Is it that the tree is starting to slant? Is that it's leafing out? So we do see a little bit of degradation, and we try to deal with that. So yes, we do have software. Our resident actual software programmer, Brett, he developed a software that basically interacts with an IVR system, a voice IVR system. So members can call in to a hotline, and it'll tell them these are the sites we're seeing down based on this power outage or something like that, or it'll tell them all systems are normal. So if you're experiencing a problem, try to look at your own internal Wi-Fi or something first, and then give us an email or a shout.
Can you add Hillview Terrace to your connections? Hell of a lot better than we're getting up here.
Yeah, I mean, like there was some talks at times maybe to think about. We experimented with the thought of having like private LTE solutions. Maybe we can spread out a wider signal to get over mountains and such like that. But the problem is because the incumbent Rock Island went in with T-Mobile and such and created that spectrum out there, we just knew it was going to be a problem if they put their meters, and we put a lot of interference in the zone, as well as we started to upgrade some of our links with more air fibers and such. But we found that those ones were a little bit more susceptible to that rain fade, to that leafing and such. So we really found that we didn't get enough backhaul capacity to keep extending. Plus, we didn't get any more people to help us out over time. So that was the other capacity issue as well. We could only carry so many neighbors with love and joy in the pride of solving problems.
Well, ours is LTE, which I think stands for less than everybody else.
Yeah, my background is in like large telecom and such like that. So Bell Canada, and I was part of like the wireless to the home solution where we did fixed wireless, mostly via like 5G and a little bit more advanced LTE. And I think that the difference that you might be experiencing versus what we did is that we took it very seriously, that solution, because we do have a lot of rural people here in Canada as well, going all the way up to the Arctic. So a lot of our members did get a good experience, but it really is something that needs to be taken care of and needs to be monitored and, not for, well, a customer consideration needs to occur there, right? And when you don't do that, you get kind of poor results.
Hey, Mark, if you're not going to use Starlink, what are you going to use?
Like Starlink is a really fascinating thing with the low orbit uh, satellites. It's really fascinating what they've been doing with that for quite a while, and what they did with the laser between the satellites in space or low orbit is really fascinating what they're doing. But in terms of Canada, Canada has so many wireless ISPs. It's actually probably the number one like independent business here in Canada because of our incumbent telecoms refuse to get fiber and cable up north, and so therefore wireless ISPs are very common. However, it's more of a commercial endeavors, not so many DBIUA efforts here in Canada. Otherwise, maybe I would help them out as well. But here in Toronto, in my metropolis apartment, I have fiber to the unit, so it's okay. But to be honest, I don't think anyone really needs 2 gigs down and 1 gig up. I think that's just a little overkill.
We've lost very few members to fiber, even though the Rock Island had a offer to run fiber to the house on every house out here in Dobe.
Well, between us and the secretary's note taker there, I would like to say that it seems like I've heard that there's some issues with the fiber connection. You have to remember sometimes that fiber and the microwave radio itself, these are just the transmission, the last mile, the delivery to the member or the customer. You still have to manage the network on the back end, the capacity and your transit out to the greater internet and such. So I go to the North American Network Operators Group when we talk a lot about these problems. Running an ISP is very tireless and never sleeps kind of work.
I will say our Rock Island connection has been rock solid for 5 years. So
Well, that's perfect.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I think what you guys are doing is great, and I'm glad it's working out. I'm kind of amazed. It seems like it's a lot of work, so thanks.
Yeah, and to echo what David said, I mean, our Rock Island connection that we use as a main backhaul has been pretty solid too. I think it's just like, it's all about those experiences and those locations. I think the San Juan Islands is a very interesting geography in terms of to solve, and maybe it's hard to thread the needle in every single place as equal as they do in other places, right?
So how do you manage routing and IP addresses? Like, do you guys have your own block of IPs, or do you have a giant NAT somewhere, or?
Yeah, we actually do run a double NAT essentially, right? We don't have portable assigned to us by Aaron addresses. So we can't make a BGP connection with our 2 upstreams and advertise our block. So we actually use private addressing, right? RFC 1918 is the standard. And so we use mostly in the 10.x range, essentially. So we just create an IP schema, I suppose, and allocated it section by section. And we've had it in place for so long now that we can detect just by seeing an IP, we kind of know what region or what issue it is. As for each of the radios themselves, we assign something in the other portion of that private address space, 172 space for management of the routers themselves. But each member has their own local LAN IP space. They NAT into the greater DBIUA, and then we NAT them out to the internet. Mostly double NAT causes a little bit of issues if you're doing certain VoIP setups, but for most of our members, it just generally works.
If someone wants a routable address, can you give it to them?
So yes, we've been experimenting for a long time about doing this something called IPv6 rapid delivery. So we can get them IPv6 address via like a tunnel. We could basically tunnel over to someone, a provider like Hurricane Electric, to give them routable addresses. The problem is IPv6 is probably about at 60 to 70% adoption or so in the US. So certain sites maybe are not available via IPv6, so they would fail over to IPv4, and certain sites are available. An example like GitHub is a code website. It's not available via IPv6, but things like Netflix and such is available via IPv6. So it depends on your experience.
If that's it, I thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. What a project. That's wonderful. Sounds like
Yes.
It's actually been fun. It is a lot of work, and there's people like Chris and Mark. They're doing it probably more hours a week than I am, but it's been very rewarding because everybody in the neighborhood's been very happy with what mind you, they're getting internet as fast as we can get it to them for $25 a month. So.
I'm kind of intrigued with the community aspect of it. It kind of harkens back to the old days, the pre-commercial internet.
That feels good as well. Definitely.
The members are very
You
appreciative
would
of
be
everything.
hard pressed to not want to help your neighbors when they're always there helping you. It's a.
Hey, Tom, do you guys have any pressures to shrink it or more people building homes or expanding do you have pressures either way?
Well, we only have pressures to expand, and we've really, at least at this point, we're back in the section where we don't want to add anybody, and that's mostly because of staffing. Not that we're not gung ho for the idea and stuff like that, but those of us who've been doing it a long time are somewhat tired. And adding new people, it's not just that it's actually less the technical issue of getting them service than we don't know what kind of can we're opening, because we have added members in the past that have been, and I don't want to be negative about them, but they've been very demanding on our time, calling us on our personal numbers late at night, or they're using it as an Airbnb and constantly. So there have been a few members we've just had to say, we can't help you at the level you're looking for. And so when you add new members, you don't really know what you're getting. So we're in that stage right now, especially Wiley's a younger gentleman. And he's just come on board. And I think once he gets trained, maybe we'll look and maybe if we brought some other younger people on the board, maybe we'll look at opening it up again. But at this point, we really want to just hold tight, and we're not really bothered at the loss of some members to fiber, unless it gets to the point, then we'll have to raise the price. But we'd have to raise the price an awful lot to get at the same level that Rock Island or Orcus Online's charging. So,
yeah. Just a quick follow-up on that. Are there any regulatory pressures on you guys that have been a problem or are a constant battle, or is it just not, you're under a radar?
No, there's been a lot of talk that we might be under some eyes for certain things that come up, but frankly, it's all been talk. We haven't had any government agency or FCC or anything come at us and say you have to do this. So we haven't. I think just because we haven't had any issues that overlook. For example, we've had some frequency issues and we've just been able to work them out with the people who had the other frequency that was overlapping ours. We've been able to solve all of our problems sort of just by going in and talking to somebody. And so nothing's gone to the level of needing anybody to come in and tell us what to do. And that's been nice as well. I think if we were bigger, I think we might come under more scrutiny, like if we were doing the whole county, but I don't know that. So. Now, did I mention how many members we have right now? I think, and Mark could correct me, I think we're at about 95 members and about 250 radios. Would that be right, Mark?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges we have now with our Caesar moving over to the East Coast, farther east than me, is we took a lot of things for granted for what was done on boots on the ground in terms of provisioning radios and all those physical elements. So we're now the remote team, myself, Brett, and Chris are trying to come up with a strategy to automate a lot of these functions. So someone can just plug in a radio, it's ready to go. You can bring it to a member's house. Same with a router, instead of having to do these things over and over and over at the clubhouse, which is Chris's garage.
Well, we have a new building now.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have a new clubhouse, and it's
Yeah, we have that. My son calls it the little yellow house full of spy gear.
So how many radios do you keep around for spares? You got 200 radios.
I should have brought a picture of that. We now have we have a few things sitting up at our tower building, but on my property we have a 12 by I want to say 12 by 16 building that has extras of pretty much everything. We have extras of all of our main radios. We have extra ubiquity antennas. We have extra routers. I don't know. I can't remember the numbers on all of them, but we could have quite a few things fail and be able to replace them instantaneously. So.
yeah.
But the programming is the issue. They're all well, actually, I think most of them are programmed now, but they're just sitting there as dumb units right now. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Mark.
thank you very much for coming and speaking to us.
Thanks, everybody. Sounds like an interesting project and a great group you have.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep our Echo link up, man. I feel kind of shame.
Well, if it is a network problem or something like that, maybe you can talk to Tom and you can just send you my email or something like that. Maybe we can talk about it sometime.
Yeah, it's more complicated than it should be, but it's on our 44 net, so sometimes that has problems.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I need to head on up to work. So, but I appreciate you guys having me, and I'll try to come to next month's meeting.
Thank you,
are more
Tom.
than welcome.
Yeah, Tom, next month, is our picnic on the Saturday.
Oh,
at
yeah, I
Interstate
saw
Park.
something about that. Yep.
So love to see you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
And Mark can come too.
Yeah. You just send it over on a little boat on Vancouver Island. I'll stay on that side if you don't mind for the next 3 years or so. Yeah.
Are we still welcome there? That's the question.
You can cross. I just don't know if you can get back in. So yeah, love to have you over.
All
All right. Well,
right. See you
thanks
guys
everybody.
later.
And I wanted to give a shout out to Peter for referring Tom to us as a potential speaker. Thank you, Peter.
This was a fun one.
It sure did disappoint. I knew it was going to be something that really sounded interesting, and I'm certainly glad it was able to happen. Thank you for doing the arranging too. And now that we have Tom as a licensed ham in the club, it'd be interesting to see what other things we can do with internet, wireless internet, and whatever, with no demands upon him, but see if he can participate in some interesting projects that we could come up with for things to do with HamWAN and Net44 and like that. So we'll have to be good to him.
I've talked with Tom before. He's a really nice guy.
All right. Well, I guess that ends the official part of the meeting, and it's now into the stories from your shack.
Before you go there, any calendar items to cover? Anything particular coming up? I know we talked about the May testing, the VE testing, and we've got our Orcas picnic next month. And I'd ask any further developments on Matt's scheduling or work with the July picnic or barbecue at San Juan.
I haven't heard, but I will ask on that. But just going back to Orcas, you can send us some information about timing and for those of us who have to swim over to get there, be able to bring people up there.
Oh yeah, we'll get something out.
Great.
All right. Well, like Tom, I need to leave and go back to work. So I will depart and leave the rest of you to carry on with whatever interesting things are going on in your shacks.
See ya.
Okay. Is that adjourning the meeting?
Yeah, the actual meeting is now closed, but
Okay.
we can leave this open until 1 o'clock if people want to talk. If they disappear, that's okay. I think I'm going to stop the recording at this point.